Get started in about 1 minute. All right, it's 2 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, hi, Patrick King here. Welcome to our webinar. A few announcements before we get started. First, foremost, we want you to know that you get one association credit for today's webinar. When you have a question, go ahead and use the chat box or the Q&A, and that'll feed in, and questions will be answered as they come in. And also, this seminar will be recorded, so if you want a copy of it later, we will have it for you. Also, from the chapter standpoint, we are still on track for our golf tournament and sponsor appreciation event, and that's going to be at International Country Club on August 31st. Obviously subject to change depending on the situation and what's going on, but right now we are moving forward with that event. And one other thing that we're doing in the chapter that's been pretty successful is all of our intern events to this point have gone virtual, but we had a great City Club tour event a couple weeks ago, and we had over 40 people in attendance. There's a CCC tour coming up, and then Washington Golf and Army Navy are going to do virtual tours for the interns as well. So hope everybody's staying safe. We'll get started. And before I turn it over to Sean number 2, I'm going to introduce you to Sean Whalen, who we will call Sean number 1 today. Sean Whalen's from Avendra. And Sean, thank you and Avendra for becoming a platinum sponsor for us this year for the chapter. And Sean is our rep for the National Capital Chapter. So Sean, welcome, and thanks so much for being a big supporter of our chapter.
Absolutely, thanks for the introduction, Patrick. Hey everyone, Avendra Clubs is really proud to be a Platinum NCCMA partner and sponsoring today's session. Before we dive into a little bit about who is Avendra Clubs, I wanted to share a bit about my club experience. I started my journey at Bethesda Country Club, and from there transitioned into a senior food and beverage management role at TPC Potomac and Avenel Farm. With a decade of private club experience, I've come full circle into my procurement specialist role with Avendra. I'm really happy that Bethesda Country Club is actually one of my customers. For my time at Bethesda, it's been incredible to see the positive outcomes of their relationship with Avendra. I continue to be blown away by Avendra Club's hands-on approach to procurement and their ability to be an all-inclusive procurement solution provider. Basically, as we like to say, everything tea to green. For those that are unfamiliar with Avendra, we are North America's leading procurement services provider, or PSP for short. While Avendra got its start focusing on the hospitality industry, our business segments have broadened and now includes, among others, Avendra Clubs, which was created to focus solely on servicing the private club industry. So, borrowing Sean number 2's Member First presentation theme, I wanted to share 3 things to know about the value of Avendra Clubs. The first 2 things I want to share with you about our 19-year business differentiators include our people and our supplier contracts. Our broad industry supplier contracts include over 1,200 select national and regional suppliers. Specific programs for clubs beyond just food and beverage also include programs such as agronomy and turf maintenance equipment, golf pro shop, fitness and spa equipment, and FF&E, as well as service suppliers like security and fire safety. And our people. Besides myself and our private clubs team, we have a team of experienced customer care individuals that provide high quality service and client satisfaction, from implementation of the program at clubs to sourcing those hard to secure items like PPE, which was extremely vital during our COVID-19 crisis. And lastly, the third value adding to our customer success is Avendra Club's sales to service model. This approach offers an in-market procurement specialist who introduces Avendra's programs to your club, and that same person is also your main point of contact. Basically, an additional resource for your team to help continuously look for ways to leverage a vendor's $14 billion in committed spend and help optimize your club spend and in turn, save money while preserving quality. During these unprecedented times, it is more important than ever to find ways to save your club money, but at the same time, making sure product quality standards and member satisfaction never suffers. As the procurement specialist and resource for private clubs in the Maryland, DC, and Virginia area, I look forward to having the opportunity to meet with your team and discuss all the ways that a vendor can start adding value and saving your club money today. My contact information is displayed on the slide below. Please reach out to me if you need any support or have any questions about Avendra. I would love to chat. Thank you so much for the time today and to the NCCMA for having me. Our next speaker, is Sean Bleyl. Sean fell in love with golf and private club industry when he joined Southworth Development as an intern in 2001. That position led to nearly a decade with Southworth, during which Sean worked in club operations, both domestically and abroad. Stints in Arizona, the Caribbean, and Bermuda prepared Sean to return to the Boston area as part of the team that opened Renaissance Golf in 2009. Sean joined MembersFirst in 2011. His primary role on the client development team is to help private clubs develop and implement their marketing and communication strategy. Most recently, Sean has been asked to provide educational content for his clients as they look to increase lead generation, enhance member communication, and improve brand awareness online. Sean, his wife, Kate, and their 3-year-old daughter, Tessa, live just outside of Boston. They recently welcomed baby girl number 2, Eleanor. Congratulations. They welcomed Eleanor to the family in May. So when he's not catching up with clients, he's catching up on sleep. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you very much, Sean, and the rest of the chapter for having me. One of the things I actually just realized is that the photo of me on this slide is actually the same shirt that I'm wearing now. So I think during COVID times, I need to update my my wardrobe a little bit. Let's see. So before we begin here, certainly thank you for the introductions. I can't go without saying thank you to all of our frontline and first responders that have been helping all of us and our families through this time. But I also have to thank the educators. I'm married to a teacher, and I see the hard work that everybody has put into keeping our children educated through here and still trying to figure out what we're going to be doing in the fall. So I really want to thank both of those groups of people. However, I also have been inspired by another group of people throughout this whole time. And those are you, the clubs. The clubs have really inspired not only me at MembersFirst to see the goodwill that you've done for not only your staff, but your community and your members has inspired us to do a lot of different things here at MembersFirst as well. So we thank you for doing everything that you are to still provide the great service that your members expect in a safe environment for everybody. So that's actually inspired me at MembersFirst to come up with the presentation that we're going to be going through today, which is really our 20 for 2020, which is a bunch of ideas, and they're all not necessarily related to the times that we're in today. A lot of the ideas that are coming through here are really going to be focused on how clubs are creating different marketing initiatives and communicating differently with their clients today, because one of the things that has happened through the last 3 to 4 months is that a big focus on communications has made its way to the front burner for all of our clients and our industry. So let's look at the numbers as to what's happened over the last few months. Well, one of the interesting things that we found within our client base was that we saw an increase of just over 30% of the average number of logins per day. That means your members are using the website, which is awesome. We've also seen with mobile app usage, there's a lot of clubs have invested time and money into the applications that you use to communicate, but it doesn't always mean that your members are actually using those. Well, those people who have never used them before, they are now, because we saw in the first month and a half of this pandemic, we saw a 7.5% increase in first-time app users, which was really incredible. Moving on to email. Email engagement has gone through the roof at clubs. Everybody says that email's dead, but the numbers don't show that. So email engagement, looking at kind of two different time frames, one prior to the pandemic, and then two in that first 1 to 2 months as the pandemic started. It went from a 47% engagement rate to a 72% engagement rate, which was 24% increase in engagement. Now that you have the eyeballs of your members and your communications plans at your clubs are being highlighted more than ever, now it's time to make sure that you are creating great content for them to engage with you on. So I want to say thank you to all of the membership marketing and communications directors at the club, because I know that from the clients that I work with, it's been one, probably exciting because a lot of people are focusing on communications, but then also it's something that is really hard to do, especially managing different things at the club, how operations are working, and then also last minute changes. So cheers to all of you. But now let's jump into all the ideas that we have that I've seen, because the number one question that I get from my clients or people that I talk to is, Sean, what's going on in the industry? What are people doing new? What are the things that are happening in Florida that we could use at our club in Boston? So there's a lot of different things that are happening throughout the country, and I wanted to share some of those with you today. So the first one is educational resources. At MembersFirst, as well as every other software provider, I think, out there, created immediately COVID-19 resources. Basically, they're communications tools for all clients to be able to figure out how can they use the software that they have differently during these times. So MembersFirst's Learning Center immediately activated our COVID-19 Resource Center, as well as a variety of other articles that we have. However, what I like is looking at the numbers. So interestingly enough, those COVID resource centers got a lot of traffic. So right here, here's a quick shot at Google Analytics, and you can see that there was about 3,000 users that actually went to these resources. These are all of our clients. These are all of your department heads or your golf professionals, your communications directors, your food and beverage professionals, all the people that are using your communications tools. They actively went and started learning how they could better communicate. So I think that that's a really great thing for the industry. But some of the unique things that I found was that out of those 3,000 people that went to the resource, they went there 8,000 times. So they were craving educational content. But the interesting part for us is that 70% of them were new visitors, people who have never really gone to these resources. So I'm excited at MembersFirst for, to have the increased engagement for, managers who are actually looking to find creative ways to communicate. Now, I say that because that's what happened at the MembersFirst COVID-19 Resource Center. However, what we started to see is a lot of clubs create their own resource centers, which I think is great. Here's Manchester Country Club from up in Manchester, New Hampshire, who immediately as their members logged into their website, and you can do this on any platform. It's not just something that is unique to MembersFirst, but what they did is they actually went through, created their own club resource center, and immediately as soon as you logged in, you would see a quick pop-up and said, hey, these are the new updates that are happening. So I thought that that was a really forward-thinking way that people were using these types of messages during this time. However, I challenge all of you to think about how you can use these types of messaging moving forward as well. Now, for those of you who were wondering, and for those of you who are kind of data analytics nuts, those graphs that I showed a few slides ago, those are all captured through Google Analytics. And all of you on this call, all of you have Google Analytics, more than likely installed on your website. Google Analytics is a free account. Certainly contact me via email if you don't know how to access your Google Analytics, but you can find a lot of great resources, not only on how many people have visited what pages on your website, but you can also find out where they're coming from. So you can see when people from all over the country are now navigating to your website. Okay, so feel free to reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to help you out. The second idea that we have here is video conferencing training. The panelists prior to this call, we all jumped on a few minutes early to go through what is the logistics of the call, what is the content, who's doing the intros. At clubs, it is really important for you to do your own video conference training for your members, whether it's going to be for board members and committee meetings, or just general meetings that you're having, whether it's with your staff or members. One club, the country club up in Brookline, Massachusetts, one of the cool things that they did is they actually they realized that they were going to be using a bunch of different meetings when this all started, all the video conference meetings. So here's a post from their LinkedIn profile showing them, having some fun with their own team meetings. And there are so many different conference portals out there. I know that today we're using Zoom, but there's other things like GoToMeeting, RingCentral. RingCentral is actually powered by Zoom. There's Google Meet, Whereby. There's a lot of free versions and a lot of paid versions. No matter which version you're using, educate the people who are going to be helping you and the people who are going to be attending sessions. So at the Country Club in Brookline, Kristen Garone, their marketing communications coordinator, she did one of the most creative things that I've seen, is that she created a video to show people how to use the software. How do you put yourself on mute? How do you activate the speaker window? How do you get rid of all the speaker windows? So I thought that that was one really interesting thing that is not only beneficial for the new members using some of their video and Zoom conferencing software. However, they've used Zoom for the last 2 to 3 years for all of their committee and board meetings. So I do feel that it's going to be something that this isn't going away. So there are going to be virtual meetings for a while. Make sure that you're helping people understand how to use those. Third idea is photography. Photography, granted, we all know that photography is so important at clubs, whether it's the facilities that you have or the members experiencing fun things and fun events. However, we saw a club in New Jersey, Canoebrook, actually get really creative with kind of modifying the front steps project. The front steps project, as I'm sure, since it went nationwide, certainly it was started in Needham, so certainly not too far from where I am right now. But that was the charity of local photographers taking photos of people on their front steps. Canoebrook partnered with their local photographer that they use for events, and they actually hired them to go around to the community of members and create their own photo album, which I thought was really, really unique and special and something that they'll be able to hold on to for a long time. However, I don't want to show a lot of photos of members since they did keep that private. But here's the real front steps project. And actually, if you notice over here, for any of you who are MembersFirst clients on this call, you probably recognize Chris Gomdens and his lovely family who live in Needham. And he keeps all of our clients educated with all of the online webinars and seminars. So I think that that's great. But he was actually, him and his family were featured on the front steps project. So I figured I'd give him a little bit of a shout out as well. The next idea is kind of moving into online instruction. So we all know that everybody's doing these virtual classes. Where I am right now, we're currently visiting my in-laws. My father-in-law works out with his trainer from New York City twice a week, and I have a feeling he's going to continue to do that for a long time, depending on when he can get back to his own club. But I think it's a really great way for people to virtually do these, but then figuring out different ways to have your in-person classes also be streamed virtually when everything gets back to normal. But not only, and it's really common to do fitness virtually, but I think cooking virtually is cool as well. So here's a snapshot of Jillian Furchuk from the University Club of Boston, who is their communications coordinator, who, she will admit it, she is not a great cook. However, she's learning. And it was awesome to see her and the chef pair up for a team demonstration about how to cook risotto. It was awesome. Granted, it was 14 minutes long. I'll send you the link if you want to view it. But I thought it was really, really great content. And if you look down here, there's 306 views of that post. It was really engaging, and it was a way to connect members with the people that they miss at the club. Now, keep in mind, everybody is focused on golf professionals and chefs and all of those people kind of providing those online tips and tricks and videos. But don't forget about our fifth idea, which is the facility professionals around your club. So one of the coolest things that I saw and have seen at a club is actually Belmont Country Club in Massachusetts, where actually they took a step further and they actually had their facilities director, Will Barron, come up with a variety of different content, and it's all videos about things you can do around your house. Now, I'm currently in the process of moving, so I'm sure there's going to be projects in the house that I'm moving into. However, he had great tips about drywall repair and battery storage, making a face mask. There was all these different things that I thought was a really great idea to be able to bring a different department head that may not be so member facing to the forefront, because they're the people that are probably going to be helping keep clubs moving along very well in the future. Now, moving into number 7, online events. Online events, granted, we all know that you can do trivia and bingo and all the wine tasting things. But what I wanted to focus on for this is something a little bit unique. For those of you who do know me, and for those of you who don't, I actually joined a curling club 2 years ago. It is the coolest thing that I've ever done. It's so fun. I've met so many new people. However, our season got cut short, just like everybody else's. However, we've already had 2 virtual bonspiels, which are basically tournaments for curling, using a platform called playcurling.com. It's a free platform that basically you log in and you can play different people back and forth. It was a really great way for us to stay connected. However, for those clubs that don't have curling, this is a really unique way to kind of play something together, and we all kind of live stream, put a Zoom together, and it was really fun to do that. So outside of curling, you can also get into trivia. A couple platforms that even we use here at MembersFirst and is Play Kahoot and CrowdPurr. It's a really great way to kind of do, we do trivia twice a week, just as a way to kind of keep engaged with the people all over the country. Not only because we work remotely, however, we're spread out across the country on a regular basis. So it's a great way to be able to connect people together. And I could see some of these virtual events happening at clubs in the off season to make sure that their clubs are staying engaged with their club up north or down south, depending on the time of year. Number 6, let's go into Member Cookbook. And actually, I think that one was out of order. We'll keep the numbers. There's plenty of ideas, and we'll go through these slides. But as Google Drive, is a collaborative environment, one thing we do at MembersFirst is actually we share recipes. And this could happen during COVID times, and it could also happen outside of COVID times. But basically, we have a collaborative shared folder called recipes that we can share back and forth, and we categorize them in different appetizers and desserts and entrees, and of course, junk food and snacks. But I'm also seeing clubs do that as well. Belmont Country Club, another example that we used previously, they created a whole magazine with a bunch of recipes from the chef for Passover. And then what they ended up doing is they created a virtual magazine for that. And I believe the platform they used was Issue U. There are free versions and paid versions of that platform, but it's a really great way for them to highlight the recipes that they'll hopefully carry through their families for a long time. Number 8, community highlights. Has your marketing director or communications person ever said to you that they don't have any content for this week's email, or, the golf professional doesn't get me content, so I can't put anything in the golf email? Unfortunately, that's not true anymore because everybody is flooding people with content. But I think that there's a lot of great content outside the 4 walls of your club. So community highlights, I think, is really key. One club in Boston, the University Club of Boston, I thought they had a great idea to mix up the content that they do on a regular basis, right? They usually provide things about members enjoying themselves and what's happening at the club and what are the events, but they're right in the heart of Boston. And so they started creating an outside the club feature. And they produced this and posted on their Instagram stories. So the outside the club feature each week highlights something in Boston that you may not know. So it could be, this week was the DeCorva Sculpture and Park Museum, and it gives you kind of a little bit of content around that. Another week I saw them focusing on the Boston Public Library. So it's really interesting with a lot of people traveling less and probably spending more time, whether it's in your own community, it's really trying to figure out how can you engage your members with the local community that you belong to, because there's a lot of things that you may not know about your hometown. I personally have gone on a duck tour in Boston, and I learned so much about the city I live in that I would have never known because I don't vacation there, right? I live here. So I thought that that was a really cool idea, and I think you could probably take this type of content and relate this back to your club in your region, and be able to provide information to your members because they look to you for an engagement. They're not looking to you just to tell them about what's happening at the club. You're a part of their community. Let's make sure that they know what community they belong to. Number 9, philanthropy. One of the things that I've always loved about private clubs is how much they give back, not only in financial times, but also in time. The philanthropy that private clubs give back to the communities that they belong to is really something that I was always proud of at the clubs that I previously worked at. But if it's something that you've always done, you can let people know the good things that you do. And one of the interesting things that we've seen through articles is, granted, all the clubs in Florida who came together to make sure that, you know, their foreign workers had the ability to get home if they needed to, right? Being able to fund certain things that they may not be able to handle or coordinate on their own, I think is great. Addison Reserve, a club down in Florida, they took that to the next level, where here's a couple screenshots of their Instagram. They actually interviewed employees. They interviewed employees and asked them what were they thankful for. And the videos were absolutely incredible and motivating. So I think that there's a lot of really great things that you can learn by asking questions. And the other cool part about that is that you can always see how many people are engaging with the content that you're distributing. Members want to know about the family of employees that are serving them and you know, watching them grow. So make sure that you look to them for great content, because they'll give it to you. The other thing, that if you're doing all that great work, make sure you incorporate that into your website. Island Country Club down at Marco Island, here's a screenshot of their recent redesign. And they actually have always focused on the charitable foundation that they have at the club that focuses on helping the community of Marco Island. Where the club is, that's where your members live. And they give back quite a bit because that's their community. One of the cool pieces about that is that, you know, they show what their members are doing within the community. And that also helps when somebody is interested in the Island Country Club, right? Because, you know, if that's in your DNA to be able to be a part of a community that is going to volunteer your time, now they know what they're getting into. And I think that that's a great thing to highlight subtly, because everybody does it a little bit differently. But, you know, don't be afraid of the good work that everybody does. Number 10, we can't forget about our four-legged friends. There's a new type of member dependent. Usually it's the primary and the secondary spouse, and then you've got the children that make up the club membership. However, all of our four-legged quarantine friends have also had their fair share of interesting things that have happened during this time. But I was on a call the other day, just reviewing some content on a club's website, and I had a good chat with Brian, one of the managers at the Country Club of Detroit, and I saw this piece of content on their website called the Yappy Hour. And he said it's something that they've started actually a few years ago, so it doesn't have anything to do with COVID times, but they started Yappy Hour. They do have a lot of open space. I think that they do this on one of their old polo fields, but clubs have so much open space that hopefully you could find a way to accommodate something like this. But I think this is one of the coolest ideas that I've seen recently, is kind of encouraging members to bring their dogs to the club. He actually said one of their bartenders is a huge baseball fan and does a lot of stuff with some of the minor league teams in that area. And so now they've created events around Yappy Hour, which is like, it's like bring your dog in a costume, and then they do all these fun things there. So I think it's a really great way to kind of take care of the whole family, not just the people. Now, we've talked a lot about some of the content that we've had here, right? Different content ideas, how to create cookbooks, or all the different kind of video pieces, right? But make sure that you're repurposing content, right? Make sure you head back to the archives. One of our clients, the Country Club of Pittsfield, a few years ago when we redesigned their website, we also did the virtual flyovers. So we had our video production team head to the club. We did 18-hole flyovers, which one of the most unique things I think about those flyovers that we did was that every other hole was a different voice. So hole number 1 was a man, hole number 2 was a female. So we kind of moved through and had a little bit of fun with it. But that was content that we created with them 3 or 4 years ago. They repurposed that into some social media strategy in 2020. So think about it. You've got 18 holes, you've got 18 flyovers, you've got 18 posts, right? And so you can kind of stagger those throughout. So if your team is looking for social media content, make sure that you go back to the archives and don't forget about the things that you've invested in a few years ago. Stonebridge Country Club over here on the right-hand side, we did a video production project with them last year in coordination with their redesign. Granted, our video production team wasn't able to go to the property this year, but we had 3 days of footage. So we created a quick 30-second spot, which was just them and the staff saying thank you to the members. We did it without ever stepping foot on property, which I think is one of the nice things about repurposing content, is going back to the archives and making sure that you can use it moving forward, depending on what you're trying to communicate. And links to all these videos and the slide deck, I will send these out to everybody. I'll send them to Kate, and then she can distribute it to the rest of the chapter if you wanted to see these. Okay. Now, number 12, documenting this time in history. I think that's an important thing now as well, not only for now, but every year moving forward. Documenting this time in history is something that, I mean, one of the coolest things about the industry we all work in is that private clubs have been around for sometimes 100+ years, right? That's awesome. You have so many generations that have walked through the doors of your clubs, and the next generation of members will want to know what you did during these times. So Belmont Country Club, I know I've used them in 3 different examples here, but their communications and member activities team really knocked it out of the park this year. So they gave me a lot of content, which was fun. But Belmont Country Club, not only in their design did they highlight the club through the years with a historical timeline, that's not even the coolest part about this club. They ended up creating time capsules, which I thought was really cool. So it was an activity that they did during their virtual junior program earlier this year, where they gave everybody a quarantine time capsule kit. The cool part about it is that there were forms not only for kids, right, but there was also forms for adults, right, the adult edition. I bet you can't guess which one was the most popular. Turns out, the adult edition of the time capsule. We looked at the statistics of how many forms were downloaded, and actually the adult edition of the time capsule was downloaded almost twice as much as the kids. So keep in mind, we're all kids at heart, so it was really cool to see people of all ages taking advantage of this great content that the club put together. Now, moving into a kind of a different category outside of content and like engaging with members, these are a few different ideas for digital ways that you can experience the club. And these have come up in a lot of my conversations over the past few weeks as well. So one of the items are digital menus, right? Kind of figuring out what does this whole touchless club look like. However, you know, I think that there's a use for digital menus forever, right? The pizza place that I take my 3-year-old daughter Tessa to, literally I go into the pizza place and they have 3 big TVs and that's the menu. And we sit down at the table and we take a look at the menu and then we order. There's no paper exchanging hands. It's really, really great. It allows them to change the menu on the fly. It doesn't waste any printing costs. And I started to think about this. Why couldn't a club use this at their snack bar or halfway house? So digital menus are not only going to be great for, you know, those maybe fast serve components of your club. However, you can also do these types of digital menus by creating quick QR codes. And everybody knows, hopefully everybody knows how a QR code works. But basically you take your phone out, open up the camera app, you put the QR code in the middle, you scan it, and it takes you to a page. So even if you're not doing large TVs, you can certainly still do digital menus that I've seen kind of pop up throughout the industry. So those are kind of some digital ways that you can experience your club. The other way is through virtual tours. I'm starting to see these pop up. I mean, you probably more than likely have seen virtual tours be very popular within the real estate industry, right? Being able to view a home and walk through a home before you actually go to the open house. Virtual tours are now making their way into private clubs. And a couple ways that people will think about using virtual tours is by pre-qualifying leads, right? So Renaissance Golf Club is actually one of the clubs that I managed when I was working for Southworth Development. And at that club, we were about an hour outside of Boston, and not the greatest area, but we were trying to attract brides and grooms from Boston. But in order to get them to drive an hour to our club that wasn't in a location where they believed there was a beautiful venue, I had to get very creative. So if they went to the website, they clicked on Explore the Clubhouse, which popped open the view into the ballroom, then they could explore the entire clubhouse at that time. It's a great way to be able to say, hey, it's worth the drive. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't mean that I'm going to sell something just by having them view a virtual tour, but it just gives them a heads up as to what they're looking for and what they're going to expect. My team, when they come to the club, and the warm feeling that they're going to get from my professionals are going to be the items that actually sell the membership or sell the wedding. Now, clubs are adding those to their websites all the time. Granted, here's one from Abenaki Country Club. The Cornell Club in New York has done those before. And there's a lot of different ways where you can organize that. But the best thing for virtual tours that we've found is that they're great for search engine optimization. They're good for your Google business page, touring the club. And for those membership and marketing directors who are on this call today, it's great for your gated content campaigns, right? So if you want to see the virtual tour, you know, give me your contact information and somebody will reach out and we'll send you the link. So there's a lot of different ways where you can use that, and we're starting to see those pop up quite a bit. My seasonal clubs, whether it's North, Mid-Atlantic, South, West, whatever the case is, what we're starting to see is that they're wanting to provide a way for their prospective members in the off season to view and tour their clubs while they're doing their research. So it's proven to be a pretty effective way to help somebody jump into the club without physically being there. Calendars and live webcams. Most of your IT professionals at the club probably understand how a live beach cam work. We're starting to see those pop up quite a bit all over the place. Here's a quick look over at the West Bay Club's live beach cam over here, right? It's a great way to kind of click on that, be able to jump into it and see, all right, what does the beach look like? You know, is everybody, is it a pretty busy day? Is it cloudy at the beach? Because I may live 15, 20 minutes away. You know, it's a great way to do that. Now in the off season, I do find myself every once in a while, I'll click on these types of beach cams when I've got about 3 feet of snow up here in Boston, okay? Over on the right-hand side, here are a couple things that we're starting to see pop up throughout the club industry is that on the public side of your website, we're starting to see people put some of their events out there. Now, granted, this is the New Jersey Club Managers Association chapter website that we designed a few years ago. What they did is they started to put their educational events out there so that people who are interested in the association kind of know what are the types of events you're hosting. But we are seeing that happen for private clubs as well, because if I'm interested in membership, I kind of want to see, hey, there's a, all right, it looks like they do seafood night every Friday, or they've got a lot of kids events. So I can kind of say, hey, there's going to be something for my kids to do, when we join the club, that type of content. So we're starting to see a lot of people promote the items that they're doing. Now, granted, you can't register and you can't really do much if you're not a member, but it's giving people a sneak peek at the experience. Okay. Now, branding's also important for a variety of different reasons, which I probably don't have to explain here. But we want to make sure that you're not having an identity crisis with your communications branding. So one of the things that we've seen at a lot of clubs is that every department does something a little bit different, right? If you don't have that one membership and marketing communications director, then you can have a different look for every different type of communication. And in one day, you may get 10 emails from 5 different departments because none of them are talking together. So what we have found is that when you do have a consistent kind of team that is monitoring all the communications and coming up with a strategy, I think that that's really important and effective. Branding your communications is really a good idea, right? Don't just call it, this week at the club or the club email or whatever the case is. Country Club of Detroit, they brand their kind of club magazine and newsletter In Good Company, right? So people start referencing that. You also have Chevy Chase Club, which I know is down in your region. They also brand some of their weekly emails and their magazine and publications called Together, right? So there's a branding component to that so that people are looking for that, not just the newsletter at the club, right? And then once you're creating those content, make sure that you're promoting them on your website, promote them in social media, even if it is a private link. Somebody may be interested, they'll click on it and it'll maybe force them to log in, but it may be that piece of content that a prospective member is looking for, and maybe it'll give them the reason to reach out. Number 17, post of the week. So keep in mind, in all of your kind of weekly communications or monthly communications or quarterly communications, I think you want to highlight, it's very effective to highlight those people who are speaking highly of you, okay? Now, the example I'm going to give here is from the Mass Golf Association. They have a really great team, and one of the things that they really focus on is engaging with their golfers. So they've branded their weekly email, and it's called The Weekender, right? And so yes, that is their weekly newsletter, but I look forward to The Weekender each week. It comes out on Thursday, and they've recently switched it because it used to be Mass Golf Monday. So what they most likely did is they were probably doing some read rate testing, and they probably found that more people are engaging with emails if they are being sent on Thursday versus Monday. So that's kind of the process that they've gone through over the last few years, looking at the statistics. But I really like that, they've created kind of a brand around The Weekender. So you can actually kind of see that brand consistent through their email communications. But my favorite part of this email, immediately, every week when I get it, I don't even read all the content. What I do is I scroll all the way to the bottom and I go to their Mass Golf Social Hub. In their Mass Golf Social Hub, they look for posts that other people have tagged them in, right? And in this case, this person golfing up north, and there was 1,400 views of this post. So what are they doing? They're promoting the game of golf. They're promoting their users, right? And they're probably also encouraging that person who posted to tag them again. They're expanding their reach. So what I think could be very engaging for a lot of clubs is create this social hub at the bottom of your weekly newsletter or quarterly newsletter. And you'd be surprised. There's probably going to be a lot of members and maybe guests talking about really, really great things that they are sharing with their social media network. Like, let them know that you're hearing them and that you appreciate the good word that they're spreading. Now, we're going to jump into one quick last section because content is great, right? Being able to engage with your members is wonderful. But keep in mind, you all need to generate revenue, right? These are a few ideas that we've seen kind of hit the bottom line in a very positive way. One of those that we're seeing a lot of clubs start to look at is live chat. Now, it's interesting because live chat being put onto websites, you probably see this all the time, right? My Bank of America mobile banking app has a live chat agent, Erica, right? There's an automated business intelligence around it, but if I have a quick question, I answer 2 questions and then I could get to a live person. It's awesome. However, live chat at private clubs is something that is just kind of making their way around here, and it's pivoting from being a marketing focused component for leads to communicating with members. So Addison Reserve down in Florida, now they have a live chatbot on their site where Denise, the membership and marketing director, pops up and says, Juan, thank you for visiting the club. Now, keep in mind, they do use that for people who are, interested in communicating and learning more about the club, which is awesome. I looked at a few stats the other day, and I think there was just under 500 chats within the last, I think they've had it on their site for the last 6 months, which was really great. Now, some chats are, just people kind of kicking the tires. Other chats are people really looking at the club, from a lead and a prospect management standpoint. But what we're starting to see shift around is that now clubs are saying, well, could a member ask me this question, right? Like, how often could, maybe there's going to be a group of members who will want to be able to just say, hey, I don't know how to get into the website. Can you help me, right? And you might be able to serve up just a quick link to say, here's the link to reset your password, right? You may have avoided a 30-minute phone call by one quick chat, which could be really effective for your marketing and communications team at the club. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with the way live chat works, here's a chatbot that we have on the MembersFirst corporate website. So I just wanted to walk you through some of the business intelligence around it. So the MembersFirst bot, if you went to my video production page, basically I want to ask you a couple questions before I assign somebody to start chatting with you. So it's the same thing that's going to happen for a club, right? So if you went to that page and you click live chat, most likely the chat bot will pop up and it'll say, you're on my video production page. So I'm going to say, would you like to chat about creative assets? Before we get started, I'm going to ask their name, right? And then I'm going to ask another pre-qualifying question. In my case at MembersFirst, I want to know which club you're from so that I can make sure to put you in touch with the right person at our company. Now, one thing that you may do at your club is that your pre-qualifying question may be, are you a current member, or are you interested in learning more about our membership process? That qualifying question could be so valuable to you because the information that you deliver on the next session will change, right? So in this case, there's 2 areas of creative assets that I'm going to pre-qualify this chat with. And I want to know before I talk to this person, if they're interested in video production, are they looking at flyovers like the Country Club at Pittsfield, or are they looking at lifestyle production like what we did at Stonebridge Country Club? And in some cases, they're looking for both, which is awesome. But as soon as I get through those first 2 pre-qualifying questions, you can see that Victoria from our team at MembersFirst, she then accepted the chat, and now she's communicating with that person. Now, in your case at clubs, the artificial intelligence behind here needs to be very smart, right? So that's the time-consuming part of any live chat. But we are starting to see people are trying to communicate differently. And for those people who are still working remotely, I've worked with a couple clubs where their marketing communications directors are still working remotely. They could literally be answering members' questions from home on a live chat while keeping up with their email and doing the email newsletter. It's an efficient way to communicate with your leads and also with your members. The next part, everybody knows that you can do online ordering, right? You can do online ordering through MembersFirst or our parent company through Jonas Software. However, online ordering has got to be a little bit more unique these days because there's a lot of passive revenue out there that you could start to engage with, right? So passive revenue and no inventory. Basically, there's a company that we partner with, T-Commerce. You can go out there and create your online store, right? However, none of this inventory lives at the club. Now, granted, you can add in your own items, which is great. However, this is all stuff that if I'm up north or if I'm ordering something for a friend and I want to send it to their house, I may not have to go to the club to actually do this. Now, we've taken that one step further, and we've actually created a store for MembersFirst as well. As you can tell, I'm still working remotely, and I just ordered 5 different MembersFirst t-shirts so that next time when I have one of these calls, I'll have MembersFirst on my chest and not necessarily have to be all dressed up. Okay. Now, the last part is lead generation. Lead generation, keep in mind, leads are still coming in, right? And so a lot of people are wondering, okay, are people going to still be interested in my club during these times? And the answer is yes, right? Here's a quick snapshot at a few of our clients in different regions. Of course, I can't necessarily share names, but these are the number of qualified prospects that have come into their websites from content, social media campaigns, all these different things that they're running over the last 3 months, which is really, really promising. Not only for us at MembersFirst, who serves the private club industry, but also for all of you clubs, right? Your prospects are interested in a very safe community these days, and that's exactly what you're providing. So keep in mind, if the leads are coming to your website, you're creating your content that's driving people through social media, make sure that you are paying attention to your online experience, right? What makes your club unique now more than ever, right? Because you don't necessarily want to look like the club next door, because you're trying to provide something different to the prospective member who's going to join your club. Now, keep in mind, creativity is not just within the club industry, right? That New Jersey Club Managers Association content example that we used previously, that calendar was inspired by a funeral home. It sounds strange, but Keohane Funeral Homes has 3 different locations. I think there's one in Boston and then 2 on the South Shore. We took the inspiration for the calendar on the New Jersey Club Manager's website from an inspirational site that we saw through a funeral home. I encourage you to look outside of the industry, because looking outside of the industry is what is going to make your digital experience really, really shine. Addison Reserve, when they redesigned their website, 2 of the probably 20 websites that were used for inspiration were inspired by a company that does kitchen renovations and provides cabinets. Blackberry Farm, kind of a hotel, another hospitality kind of section of the industry. Island Country Club took inspiration from gentlemen barbershops, which, I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to my haircut. I'm a little bit overdue. But taking inspiration from outside of the industry is what's going to make your club and your team unique. So one of the things that I'll offer up for everybody on this call, it's an exercise I do with all of my clients, but you can certainly steal whatever ideas and redesign with whatever company you currently use. But I'll be able to provide everybody with a design inspiration exercise that you and your marketing and communications directors can do to actually evaluate your current digital footprint and identify, what is your brand promise? Are you attracted or turned off by the digital experience from other companies or from your own? How do you feel about the font, the color, the layout? These are all the things that you want to make sure that your prospective members are getting from your digital footprint as well. And the last thing you want to make sure, was it making use of your creative assets that you've invested in? And ideally, did you learn anything new when you went to these websites? So the next idea is the last idea. So basically, that's the end of the session. And I wanted to make sure that you had a variety of ideas that covered a variety of different topics that we see at private clubs. But the next idea is going to be probably something that I feature in my next webinar. So what I will do, and Kate, I can actually send you the link to this. There is a brainstorming session where if you've done something really cool at your club and you'd like to share it with the rest of the industry, go on in, fill out this form, give us the innovative idea that you've done at your club or that you've seen somebody else do. And it'd be awesome to share that with everybody else. So what I'll do, Kate, is I will send this link to you so that you've got it.
Great.
And then I want to thank everybody so much. We're right at 2:55, so just before 3 o'clock, which is awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I really wish I could have been there in person, but if I couldn't be there in person, I was so happy to be here virtually. Now, I'd love to open that up, Kate, I guess, for questions if anybody has that. I did see a couple things that were popping up through as I was talking.
Yeah, I've seen a few come through. So one question is, what do you suggest a club does to engage member kids now that the lack of camps, with the lack of camps and things like that, that they would typically be doing during the summer months?
I think you can take the ideas that are created from your junior program directors, and I think just bring those virtually, right? Or you just have to think creatively. Like we worked with one club that basically created all these different types of activities, and then you signed up for the activities. Like one was archery, one was a boat trip. I think that there's a lot of safe things that clubs can do that sometimes aren't necessarily the traditional junior program, pool, golf, tennis. I think that you can think outside of the box and sometimes use the community, right? So who knows, like in the case of the University Club of Boston, they highlighted the Boston Public Library. It may be worthwhile to, when the Boston Public Library reopens, to take 4 kids and have them sign up and they have a chaperone and they go over to the library. I think that juniors want to be engaged, not only at the club, but outside of the club. And you can tie it back to your club by being the one to introduce it. So my answer to that is think creatively, but don't think within your own 4 walls, if that makes sense.
Okay. The next question, Sean, at our city club, we have privacy policies for members who are not, Sean, at our city club, we have privacy policies for their members and who are not technology savvy. However, our members are also members of country clubs and we want to engage and compete with our peers. For example, curbside F&B, what are you seeing city clubs doing that is different from country clubs? How can we stand out from country clubs and attract members into the city to use our clubs?
So and that question it seemed like that question may have jumped around a little bit. So just so that I understand, it's how does a city club do something different than a country club? Because the member may be a member of a country club and a city club, and they're trying to attract both ways.
I guess if you're a member of a city club and a country club, how do they attract the members to come into the city and use the city club versus the country club?
Well, I think producing good content will help that person gravitate towards one or the other. So, and what I mean by that is if the country club, in the suburbs and the city club, both are providing whatever it is, a meal to go, but it's barbecue. Right, just use that for an example. I heard this the other day with just a local restaurant that I was aware of. If you're going to provide the same meal, what can you do differently that will gravitate people to to go to your place better. One could the chef come on and create a video and say, this is my grandfather's recipe, and here's the reason why we do it, and I'm going to actually put a recipe card within that, within the order that you're going to pick up, right? That personal messaging could make that barbecue taste a lot different because you know the meaning behind it than the country club. So I don't think it's a matter of you don't need to create a different type of a meal, just using a takeout example. What I think you need to do is give them the story behind it and create that personal connection, which if you just tell me pick up barbecue on Friday night from country club, but pick up, Chef Tom's, grandfather's recipe for barbecue on Saturday night, and you give me the story behind it, I'm going to gravitate towards Chef Tom. That's what I would say is kind of use your creative content to show why your meals are different than the country clubs.
Awesome. We're going to run out of time, but I'm going to try and hit these last two that came through. These are really great ideas. Have you seen any clubs make mistakes? Anything we should be cautious of or major mistakes to avoid?
Have I seen clubs make mistakes? Yeah. Clubs make mistakes all the time, and so do I. I think that it's, don't be afraid of mistakes. We've had clubs, for example, want to get creative with how they take pool reservations, right? And they've waited, and are they doing it right? Should we do it? Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? You really don't know until you try it, right? And you don't know how the members are actually going to react to doing it. I think that the mistakes I've seen made by most clubs are when they don't think outside of the box and they don't try something new, because they may say, well, my members, they'll never do that, right? They've never done that. I don't think they're going to do it. I think you need to give your members a little bit more credit and, let them know it's a learning curve, right? Nobody knows how to navigate these waters. But if you don't try things, then that's the biggest mistake. So I would say the biggest mistake that I see clubs making is not trying something.
Okay. And then this is coming from a communications director. My issue has been trying to prioritize everything that we want to do. Do you have any insight into what clubs should prioritize to keep the members engaged during this time?
I think each club is different. I think that the number one thing is having a strategy in place and then filling in the gaps. The one thing that I've seen marketing communications directors get flooded with is that they've never had more department heads want to give them content, right? They've never had more people say, hey, I'll do an at-home golf tip, or I've got a fitness video, or the chef wants to give you something, because even the employees are craving for ways to be able to engage with members when they can't see them on a regular basis. So it's hard to prioritize a specific piece of content until you know what works, right? Until you know what is the content they're clicking on, look at the registration rates, right? And I think that's going to be different for every club, but prioritizing is really another term for organizing. And I do this even with our corporate marketing team, is that, we have our strategy in place. We set it up, in the beginning of the year, and we plan out everything through all 4 quarters. However, things change and it's on the fly. So you continually are working together to create, whether it's content collection documents or posting strategies or all those things, and you need to be able to move fluidly. I personally think, I don't think it's a matter of prioritizing what's important. I think prioritizing organization will help you create good content for clubs. Don't let the chef give you the menu 2 hours before dinner service or 2 hours before the email has to go out, right? You want to make sure that you've got the content in enough time for you as the marketing communications director to make that look good so that you can get engagement. So I think you'll start to find that your priority challenge will be solved by creating organization around the way people deliver you content. Maybe that was a long-winded answer, but I think hopefully that got the point across.
And last one, do you have like an MVP or top 3 favorite ideas from your list?
Oh, so one of my MVPs was the time capsule one from Belmont. The reason for that is because I've become pretty close with that marketing, membership, and communications director. He's got a Club Med background, which is kind of cool. So like he knows kids and families and and so it was really cool to see how the club allowed him to be able to bring those ideas to the forefront. But the reason I like that time capsule one is because he also sent me a personal link for a similar form for people who've had babies during quarantine. And so like we created a personal connection on that part of it, but I feel like I've created a friend as well, right? He knows about the stuff that I personally have. So that was one highlight. Virtual tours, I think, is one thing I think that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed talking about recently with a lot of my clients, because it's figuring out how to give people a sneak peek at these clubs that they've never seen before, right? And not every club's going to be able to do that, but I think virtual tours, I think, is something that I've really enjoyed talking with my clients about. And then also, I really like what the University Club of Boston did with their community content, right? I mean, promoting your community is not necessarily a bad thing, right? I think it's a way it's where your members are spending time when they're not at the club. You have to do it carefully and thoughtfully. But I think that club has taken the approach of the club isn't just about the physical facility. The club is the members who make up that club and where they're spending their time. So I thought it was really creative for them to not just focus on what they're doing at the club, but what their community is doing, because let's face it, they're a part of that community. So I guess those are my top 3. I like that question. I'd be curious to see what other people's top 3 are. I don't know if the chat's still going. It'd be cool to see people throw in the chat what were some of their favorites.
Let's see. I think those are all the questions that we had. Gina says she loves the QR codes.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
I said Gina says she loves the QR codes.
Cool. And QR codes, like years ago, they weren't cool until Apple made them like a part of the camera. So I'm glad to see that people are starting to use QR codes again.
Yeah, you don't have to have a separate app anymore. Nobody else is throwing out their faves.
There's got to be a couple favorites in there. I think QR codes is one. Thank you, Gina.
She says, we've replaced all our floor materials, menus, etc., with photo frames of QR codes.
Easy. That's really cool. What I'd love to see, Gina, too, if send me a couple pictures of that. My email address is in here. Like, I'd love to, kind of like see what that looks like on your end. And actually, that kind of reminds me what I can do.
And Sean, Gina's from the Capitol Hill Club, where we had the reception before the Nats game that you guys sponsored last year.
Oh, very cool. And
yeah.
Congratulations to the Nats. I'd like to say it was because I was down there for my first, Washington Nationals game.
Lucky charm.
Yeah. And what I'll do, Kate, is in the chat screen, I just put a link to that idea sharing form. So certainly it'd be awesome if you guys have other ideas, certainly fill that out, and it'd be great to kind of see how we can, show what other clubs are doing great across the country.
Sounds great.
All right, perfect.
All right, so I'll go ahead and send out a follow-up from your presentation. I'll include that link in there. I just want to say a big thanks for being with us today. We really appreciate it. Tons of positive feedback, tons of great ideas. So thank you so much for being with us. We can't wait to have you back again.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.